Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy,
all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage.
Hello, Cubanwriter here with Darkling Faye.
Hello! It seems like it's been forever since I've been able to do one of these with you.
It's true, our schedules haven't matched up, and neither have the shows we've been watching.
I think it's more of the shows that we've been watching or not watching together. It's more probably accurate.
But tonight, a movie came along that we both wanted to see.
Yes, the movie came along that we both went to see.
Wanted to see.
Yes, we both went to see. Yay!
You didn't want to see it?
Okay, yeah. It wasn't like one that was like if we probably weren't married and together. I don't know on my own if I would have wanted to have gone and seen it.
So you're saying I have improved your life?
Sure, that's exactly what I'm saying. You have improved my life for the better.
Anyway,
True love.
we saw Spider-Man Homecoming.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't know the music for Spider-Man. Insert it here.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, doing the things a spider can.
Isn't
Swinging
that
high, swinging low.
Spider
Something
Pig?
else sung.
From...
That Spider-Pig's based on Spider-Man.
Oh, I did not know that. I do like the Spider Pig. That's cute. But, for those who don't know, as much as I'm obsessed with Wonder Woman, and have been since I was little, Cubanwriter here has kind of been obsessed, but with Spider-Man. It's like his nostalgic childhood hero, which is really ironic for anyone who knows Cubanwriter for more than like an hour, because he is deathly afraid of spiders.
It's true. It is bizarre that one of my favorite superheroes got his powers from a radioactive spider.
I do think that it is a little bit amusing that you have such a high affection for someone that is all about spiders.
Well, he's not all about spiders. Very little of him is like a spider. It's not like The Fly, where the guy turned into a fly. He doesn't turn into a spider. He has almost no spider appearance component at all. Even his suit doesn't particularly look like a spider.
No, but I would say in a lot of times in the movie there usually is some sort of like you have to deal with a spider moment or two sometimes and how it's done. But you have to admit it is a little fairly amusing. But
it would be like if your favorite hero was Ant-Man.
Oh my gosh, there's no way he's making that. Let me just tell you, I'm not a big horror fan. I don't like horror movies or scary movies. But I would put Ant-Man up there on the horror genre for me because there are a lot of flippin' ants in that movie.
That's true. I will give you this. Ant-Man is scarier for you than Spider-Man could ever be for me because he has actual ants.
I will say, like, the one thing that Spider-Man doesn't do is doesn't, like, call a whole bunch of spiders to him, and he doesn't, like, ride around on some, and the Ant-Man was a little...
It's good that Spider-Man doesn't summon armies of spiders because even the writer of Charlotte's Web couldn't make that okay.
It's true. But, so I know that you've been, like, anxiously awaiting this movie to come out. You've been reading everything that you can possibly read about it. You were so excited when he got his little moment in the Avengers movie and that they were finally going to take it on and he wasn't going to get ignored anymore. So I know you've been like, oh, so excited. So I have to ask, did it live up to everything that you were hoping it did?
It did.
Oh, yay.
This Spider-Man, I think, is my favorite Spider-Man.
Ooh.
I did not like the previous Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man one.
Was that the one that was with the English guy, Andrew
Yeah.
whatever, the red hair?
And I think it was directed by some guy named Webb, who was apparently born to direct it.
I don't know who, I'll be honest. I can't remember the director, but I remember that he did it. And then before that was the really sad and depressing Tobey Maguire.
I liked Tobey Maguire's 1 and 2. I did not like Tobey Maguire's Part 3. I wish they had just focused on one villain in that movie.
Yeah. But I mean, he was never my favorite Spider-Man.
I think he did a good job of making Spider-Man vulnerable, but maybe he went too far in that direction. I don't know. He was always a little too old to do Spider-Man properly. But I think he did a passable job. He did as good as we could have hoped for at the time. This was in an age before the great superhero movies were a dime a dozen. And I thought he did a pretty good job.
So this you'll have to say, the new reinvention is your favorite?
Yes, best
Ooh,
Peter Parker,
look at
100%.
that.
And I think also my favorite Spider-Man.
Oh.
Now, there were things that I didn't 100% like about this Spider-Man, but taking the good with the bad, I think he still comes out on top.
All right.
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. It's a fun film. Spider-Man is not my favorite superhero. I'll be honest. I never had like any kind of childhood memories of like, oh, he's so great. Like, I don't know. He never appealed to me in any way. I have the same problem with Superman, though. I'll be honest. He's not my favorite either. So it's hard to watch movies when you don't have a...
Superman is also not my favorite.
Yeah, I don't think he's anyone.
One day you guys will have to hear my speech about how they messed up Superman.
We do not have enough time for that. We are talking about Spider-Man. We're not talking about your opinions on Superman. But it was a fun film. I had some problems with it. I think the problem I have with just Spider-Man across the board as a character is because he's a kid. And I always have problems with kid superheroes, like the Teen Titans and Young Justice, and when they try and do all of that type of stuff, I always have like that problem where I'm like, why are all these adults in the world okay with all of this? Like, it just doesn't, I can't get past. I know it's a movie.
No.
I know it's not all real.
I'm right there with you.
So I guess because I already have that initial reaction, it's just hard for me to be like, hey, Spider-Man, I can't wait to see it. So I think coming from that place already, it's not something that I naturally gravitate towards as a hero, as something I read in comic books type thing.
I know that Sony and Marvel, one of them or both of them, wanted to really put Spider-Man in high school. That's the place I want to get him out of as fast as possible because I'm most comfortable with him when he's graduating high school, entering college, when he's just becoming an adult. That's my favorite Spider-Man. And when I used to read the Spider-Man comics, he was either going in through college or he was just graduating from college. He was in that era. And I was comfortable with that. He was an adult. But yeah, they made him a little young here. He completely pulls it off. Unfortunately, that makes me a little uncomfortable when someone in authority is sending him out to do heroics. Just the same way in Captain America Civil War when he was in that fight. And you're thinking, wow, he's a little young for this. What's Tony Stark thinking, right? I mean, I still liked it. It was still awesome. But it gives me that little moral twinge in the back.
Yeah, it's a difficult superhero when they do want to focus on him at this age to really try and, I guess, cheer on and get behind so much. It's not quite as natural as some of the other heroes because they are adults. Mm-hmm. And you feel like when they're put in life and death situations, when they have to make these moral things, like people are like, hey, let's bring him on board and let's do all this stuff, and you're like, don't you have a moral compass? Aren't there some laws, regulations, child labor, something somewhere?
I feel like I want a minimum age of 16 for these heroes because at least at 16, if I remember correctly, at 16 with parental consent, you can join the military, or at least it used to be that way. So at least there I could say, well, if we're going to send them off to die, then I guess they can save the world.
Yeah.
I know why they do teenage heroes.
Oh,
because kids want to have someone they can relate
Sure.
to.
I mean, I get it, but I'm also not at the age where I really want to go back to high school and have all the teenage angst and those different settings that you have to do. Like, they're a dime a dozen all over. I'm really not interested in a Twilight type thing. I'm not looking for teen romance.
Well, this wasn't anything like that. This was very light.
It doesn't interest me. If I'm going to watch a movie about something, it's not like, let's go back to high school and watch some high school kids. Dun, dun, dun.
If it was a lot of angst, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. But this was pretty lighthearted. He had problems and social situations, but they weren't oppressively heavy. They were very light. They moved along quick. They didn't bog him down or he didn't have to mope in a corner about anything. They moved it. It was fine.
Okay. It was just like one kind of almost cliche moment after another sometimes.
I don't know. I didn't feel the same way you did about it. I thought
maybe it's because you do have sometimes a 14-year-old boy's humor.
I might.
Maybe that's why you.
I might have the mind of a 14-year-old boy. But a few things I want to say.
There were some good things. I'm not saying it was terrible. I don't want to.
I want to say I liked the best friend. I thought he was a good vehicle for us to connect with Spider-Man because he had the perspective of what we would be if we were a kid in high school and our best friend turned out to be a superhero. We'd be totally excited.
He came off very genuine.
Yeah.
As like I would say most high school people were, and he had some of the best lines. I think that they gave him the better lines in the movie. So I enjoyed that. He really was. He was good. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything, but good actor.
I was worried there was going to be too much Tony Stark because the trailers were very Iron Man heavy.
Yeah.
And there wasn't too much Tony Stark. I think he was maybe in 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same worry because if I wanted to watch Iron Man, I would go see an Iron Man movie.
They did a very...
So you didn't, like you were kind of worried, like, oh, it's going to be like all of his gimmicks and his humor that we had before, and but he wasn't. His cameos were more realistic. It makes sense, like, when he's there, like, he should be there. Because otherwise you'd be like, where is he? Well, I don't understand. Where did the grown-up adult supervision all of a sudden go to? Like, you would wonder about it. So they did a good job there, because I was worried, too. I didn't know in any of the comics
There was a period of time when Iron Man and Spider-Man teamed up, and Iron Man made Spider-Man a suit. I'll get on that later. But
so I didn't know. Like, I didn't know if that was just something that they did or if it really was. Because I haven't read a lot of comics centered around him.
It didn't happen just like this in the comics, but there was a relationship.
If there's, like, something in the they'll use that.
They used Happy a lot to stand in, so they wouldn't have to have Iron Man in it all the time. And I liked that. Because you don't have the situation there where the real hero is coming in to save the day all the time.
Well, and I mean, like, it's not realistic. If you think about who Tony Stark is, he's like this billionaire who is always still working on his own stuff and is, like, so in his own headspace that he does just more trivial things. He always delegates to other people because he really is in his workshop a lot, always working on his own type of stuff.
And going to parties and whatever.
Yeah, doing the billionaire lifestyle type thing. So it would be strange if it was someone, if Happy wasn't the one that was his handler or his go-to type person.
Yeah.
So I thought that they did a good job there. I liked May.
Yes, I liked May.
Sure
she also wasn't in it too much. She had just the right presence.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was kind of worried when I found out that Marissa Tomei was going to be Aunt May, how they were going to do that, because it is more of a younger version, and I didn't know how that was going to play out with the relationship and how they were going to play with that. But I think they did a good job with it. It wasn't too weird or creepy in a way, because I didn't know how it was going to work.
They did just the right tip of the hat to the fact that she's still a little sexy without making it strange.
Yeah, I thought that was a good vehicle.
The villain. I think that
Poor Batman. I mean, things have gotten pretty bad for him, haven't they? It is kind of funny when you think like Michael Keaton was the original Batman and now he's the villain.
It's even funnier that he was Birdman. But I think he's the best Marvel villain I've seen since Loki, and the best developed one, the one you can most relate to. And I actually sometimes found myself kind of rooting for him a little against my better wishes.
I always love when they do a villain well where you almost sympathize and can understand. I do like that the very first part of it is the introduction of him. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice that you didn't all of a sudden start on Spider-Man, but you got to actually have some development into the villain and the backstory and have it. I really liked how they did that. That was really smart of them. He did a terrific job. Michael Keaton did.
Yeah.
Awesome in this role. Really took it on. Didn't go like over the top cheesy, which he could have done. Mm-hmm. Kept it very realistic and kind of gritty, and I liked it. I really thought he did a good job with it. I was happy to see it, and you kind of feel bad, like, you know, like, oh, he kind of lost. That was bad. Like,
I bought him.
You're like, oh, you want to root for him.
It's true.
Like, you felt like his, conflict that he had going on, and I liked how this type of movie at least takes on some aspects that the Avengers and Iron Man and some of the others haven't done as much. And this is something that we always question too when we get to see the Superman movies into, like, you see them destroy all this stuff, and like then they just like go away, and like nobody thinks about any of the consequences or the aftermath of what happens.
Yeah.
Like, who's cleaning this up? How does that work? How do people's, like, there's all these buildings that are a mess, and nobody thinks about any of that. And it was kind of nice how this movie, they at least kind of dealt with it a little bit and got to show a little bit of the aftermath, and that it's not all, I guess, fun and hero games. As they say, like, there are some consequences that happen to these different big fights that take on.
Yes, and even in S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, sometimes they'll be like, oh, this villain has captured alien technology from the incident in New York, right? But they never really go into it very deeply. This movie established that whole scenario better than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could in over multiple seasons.
Yeah, and I thought that they dealt with it in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes sense that here's this weird technology and what really happens when it is introduced.
Right. Now,
what are the consequences of it? What's the good and the bad?
Now, I will say this movie was 7/10 Peter Parker's life, mm-hmm. and the rest was Spider-Man action.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
And that was okay with me, because I think in order to care about Spider-Man, you really have to develop Peter Parker. The comics spend a lot of time on his personal life and his relationship troubles and his trouble balancing his hero life with his personal life. So it wouldn't be a Spider-Man story if you didn't give us a lot of Peter Parker. And now that we've gotten a lot of Peter Parker and we're on board with him, I think future films can do a little more Spider-Man and a little less Peter Parker and be okay.
Yeah, well, at least I hope that they at least age him.
I hope the next movie he's graduating high school.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I hope we're out of the high school stage.
I suspect not, but I hope so.
Yeah,
They love him in high school, but this was definitely a movie that was Spider-Man and Peter Parker both discovering themselves and how to balance themselves in their lives.
And that's really nice to see. Like, but I would like to just get out of the high schoolness of it. So I'm hoping, like you are, the next movie that they do, he's at least in college, because I think I'll be a little bit better with some of the situations that happen. Because I think they even mentioned he was 15 here.
Yeah, he was 15. So next movie, I recommend Spider-Man Graduation Day.
It would be nice. But, so, you did talk about a lot of things you liked. Was there anything that you didn't like?
Yes.
Were there some issues that you had?
They weren't game-breaking problems.
No, because this was the best one, you said.
It was. But there were some moments that challenged my suspension of disbelief.
Ooh, okay.
In particular, there were situations, and this was the most egregious offense of the movie.
Is this a spoiler? Do I have to do spoiler alert?
No. Unspoiler alert.
All right.
Because we got to give our score and then we go into spoiler.
Okay. I was so excited to do my little.
Well, we want the people who don't want spoilers to also know what we thought of the film.
Okay. So, what was the most egregious?
There were situations in the film where I feel there should have been more human consequences to actions and more injuries and deaths.
I was gonna say you like to see people die.
I don't like to see people die, but if there's a situation where people should die, I think people should die.
So you like people dying?
I don't like people dying, but I think it's an important thing in writing that you don't write around the consequences of characters' actions, that you fully experience them.
So you're with the author of Game of Thrones, kill them all.
Well, I probably wouldn't be as harsh as he is, but he's on the right track. I think he's got it more right than a lot of other writers, and I think superhero movies in particular could benefit from a little more consequence.
Okay, so they didn't really have any consequences.
They didn't have sufficient consequences.
I will say that a lot of the problems that superhero films have are physics. And
okay, there was one situation where we disagree on whether something was plausible.
I'm just saying,
and another situation where I agree with you that wouldn't have gone down that way.
It just seems a little like there are physics and science that tell us how the world works. And I think that we all learned this in the Martian movie when he scienced the shit out of things. Science is an important part of how the world works. And movies tend to forget about science altogether. They forget about physics. They forget about gravity. They forget about all of the things of how the world works. And I just felt that there was a little bit of craziness going on where, like, there's no broken bones. There's no anything. There's, like, you're still not, you're a superhero, yes, but, you're not, like, you haven't, I mean, I can still shoot you. I should still be able to wound you. You're not impenetrable. I should be able to, like, run you over with a car and your bones should break, right? Like, it just feels like so...
I don't know what the breaking point of Spider-Man's bones are, but I definitely would have expected to see more broken skin, at least
There's, no bruising anywhere. You're thrown against buildings and here, there, everywhere. Like, not even a scratch.
It's ironic that the biggest hero wound I saw in the film was on Iron Man near the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it was and almost the same thing for the bad guys. Hardly any of them really get beat up or hurt in any of their skirmishes, even that they're being thrown against buildings and different things like that.
I have to say, it must have been a rating thing that they didn't want to violate or whatever.
I don't know, but that was one of the things that I do have to agree with in some of the action where it really was odd non-consequences.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if you're not going to hurt him, at least you should be a little...
Now, we're almost at the end of the recording length that we can have for the first part.
Okay, so you
we
want to
have
pause
to...
it?
No, we have to rate it real quick.
Oh, we're going to rate it.
For our non-spoiler people.
So...
No, we're not doing spiders.
I haven't even...
I could see it on your eyes.
I haven't even said anything. I thought we were going to do web slingers, but if you want to just...
No, we're doing web slingers.
That's what I
have the graphic for web slingers.
That was going to be my thing, but
okay.
You seem to be
I'm
really
giving
wanting
web slingers. I'm giving it
okay.
Shush with the spiders. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 web slingers. I'm taking away a half because it was a little light on the consequences for the heroic actions that took place or heroic mistakes that might have happened.
Can I give it 3.5 or 3 3/4 spider web slingers.
No spider web, just Spider-Man web slingers. I'm going to do a little hand. He's got a little thing. So you want 3.5?
That looks like a gang sign.
That's not a gang sign. That's his web slinging symbol.
I think it was part of a gang.
So 3.5?
A 3 3/4.
3 3/4. You just want to make me do a 3/4. Do you really feel that way, or are you really just trying to get me to render a 3/4?
It's almost a 4, but not quite.
Okay.
I can't quite give it a 4, but it's better than 3.5, but not quite a 4, just because of some of the action I felt was a little preposterous. Like, it really did have problems with science and the human body not working as it should. And I also do have to say some of the humor, while I liked Ned and I liked his quips and stuff, I thought some of it was way too forced and just too cheesy, so I could have done without so many jokes and more maybe gravitas to certain situations. But almost a 4. Spider slinging web things.
Okay. So we have 3 3/4 for her and 4.5 for me. I got a lot of pieces of web slingers to render. And now we're going to enter our spoiler section.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
All right, so now we're entering our spoiler section where we can discuss things with a little more detail.
Spider alert.
So there are a couple of situations in this film where a villain does something or Spider-Man has an accident and does something.
That sounded like...
Spider-Man messes up sometimes in the film, which is fine. I would expect a new hero to mess up sometimes.
Well, and especially given his age.
Yeah.
I think we do have to take that into account.
Absolutely.
That he's 15. I didn't know a lot when I was 15, let alone to be a superhero.
Right. So the first time something happens where I think, oh, it seemed weird there wasn't an injury, but I guess maybe not, was when he's thwarting that ATM heist. Oh, and that beam shoots through across the street, cuts an entire building in half, or at least the storefront that was there got cut in half. But the guy gets evacuated out and he's fine. I'm like, I guess he was sitting when that happened.
Thank goodness, though, the cat. Because that's really the main concern, is that the cat made it out.
So
I think part of the problem is, you hit the nail on the head earlier, is that they were trying to appease a rating.
Yeah, I think so.
And I feel like that PG-13, nobody can die.
Right.
Nobody can grievously injured.
There was one death.
There was a death, but I have to say, it was a very cartoon death.
It was. And it was accidental.
It's true.
Nobody intended anybody to die.
Right? So yeah, I really think that part of the problem was that they were trying to appease that rating, and I don't think that was to their benefit. I think that it would have been better if it felt a little bit more realistic. There really are no... I mean, there was no real big consequence anywhere in this entire film to anyone.
The part that was most unbelievable to me, I mean, with the storefront getting cut in half and the guy coming out, I said, well, I guess he was sitting down, because it looked like if you had been standing, you would have at least had the upper chest part of your body cut off.
Well, it just looked like, in the way that it had gotten damaged, that it looked, I mean, to be honest, like a bomb had gone off. Like, it totally had...
Yeah, there was fire and stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean...
But that beam would have cut anybody in half.
But I mean, like, it looked like the aftermath of some sort of terrorist attack. And they're like, yeah, I'm good, just a little woozy, and thanks for getting my cat. Thank goodness.
So
and I was like, what?
So the next time there's a big thing that happens, it's again... Well, the first time wasn't Spider-Man's fault exactly, but the next time it was definitely Spider-Man's fault, where he takes the enemy's gun, but then doesn't know how to handle it, and it goes off and it cuts a boat in half. By the way, that boat would have sank. But anyway,
physics would tell us it wouldn't.
Well, let's forget the fact that the boat would have sank. It cut the boat in half. Are you telling me that on that whole boat, there was nobody in that part in the middle?
No.
That I didn't buy that
That's how
at all.
earthquakes happen too in the movies.
And they try and explain it away like, oh, you're pretty lucky nobody got hurt. I'm like, you're not lucky nobody got hurt. That is the writer giving you a free pass for some ridiculousness going on there.
It was.
That is plot armor.
It was so. And then how do you not even strain a muscle? Like you're trying to hold the two sides of the ship together with nothing more than some hope and a prayer, and I guess your awesome spider strength.
Well, look,
with
he
your
is
web things.
He is super strong, but there
sure,
was
you can be super strong, but like, so are you saying that I can't dislocate your joints?
See,
like,
that's the thing. He should have had problems. Like after each fight, you should have seen him like, oh, that hurts
like,
because I got hurt in the fight.
This was the thing that I thought like Aunt May would be suspicious about, right? That he comes home injured and a little beat up. Like she's wondering, is he getting in fights? Is he being bullied at school? Are there problems I don't know about? Like I would have thought that would have got, but he doesn't get hurt at all. Like his muscles are great. He's just awesome because he's Spider-Man. He didn't dislocate any joints or bones or muscles or anything. Just trying to keep this ship together and did a lousy job of it. It was weird. And then here's where I have to say he is not Superman. He is not Captain America. I know.
Actually, he's way stronger than Captain America. Super stronger
so
than Captain America.
Strong that you can like survive a plane crash.
Well, that's a thing.
Really?
I think in fact, both of them, both
That's
the
what
Vulture
I don't understand.
and Spider-Man should have been at least completely messed up after that plane crash.
Here's the thing. Not only, but before he got to the plane crash, you're practically buried alive.
Yeah. He should have had some broken ribs or something.
No problems there. Like, oh yeah, I just walked that stuff off. That was no problem. And now I'm going to like crash to the ground on a plane and I don't have a parachute or anything. I don't need a parachute. Why would you need to? Because you can plummet to the earth and be just fine.
His plot armor was stronger than Tony Stark's armor that they built for him.
It was like not a broken bone, not a bloody nose, not a black eye, nothing. Not even like where they always have those little cuts on the forehead because that always looks cool, right? Nothing.
They really, I don't know what the deal was with the rating. Maybe because the girl showed her middle finger at one point, they had to cut out more blood. I don't know what the deal was. But literally nobody in this movie seems injured at any point except for Tony Stark in the opening scenes when you could see he has a black eye.
Yeah.
And it's the only black eye I can remember seeing in the whole film.
I mean, it was so ridiculous. I'm like, I don't understand how it works. Like, the plane crashed. I mean, did it slow down so much that it just went like ding? Like, And
then you know what? When the backpack bomb goes off in the Washington Monument,
yep.
I'm like, they described it as a bomb, like it's an explosive. So it goes off in the elevator with people in it. Nobody in the elevator gets hurt because apparently all of the energy from this backpack explosive it goes straight up and damages the building without hurting anybody inside.
It was just a ridiculous, like, physics.
It would have been cooler if he'd finally gotten through
way.
to him and said, "You gotta get rid of that thing in your backpack." And then the guy got rid of it in such a way that he threw it away from everybody, but it still blew up and hurt the building. Then that would have made a little more sense. But something weird about this explosive.
I was going to say, at least explain, because like, oh, it's alien technology, so it doesn't necessarily work the same way. And when it does all this, whatever you want to do, you're like.
They could have even said, it's an explosive, but it doesn't affect organic material. It only affects inorganic material because of the energy wave.
Whatever weird Star Trek weird thing they want to come up with why stuff works in space when it shouldn't. It's fine, right? But just come up with something. Don't just be like, oh, that's how physics work in the movie. No, it's not how physics work in the movie. So those were some of my problems. I really thought that it was just strange. It was like, I know Spider-Man's, but he's like indestructible. Like, I was like, you don't need Superman. You can just have Spider-Man. He'll deflect everything. No problem.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, why was he trying to get the guns from people when apparently he's bulletproof? They don't ever show him being bulletproof, but you're like, he takes all this other damage that's actually more severe than a bullet. So you'd think he would be bulletproof then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little far-fetched. That he doesn't get hurt and that nobody gets hurt in all of these incidents that happen. Nobody gets even seriously injured. So very low stakes consequence for all the bad things that happen in the movie.
And then I will have to say that as an audience member, you know fairly quickly because you can see. I mean, this is really from the start of any action that really happens with him when he's introduced. It takes away any kind of peril. You never feel like anyone's in peril. That there's going to be any real bad situation where anything of remote things going to happen. So it kind of takes that away, which is a little bit of a bummer because as an audience member, you kind of want to feel that. You want to feel that inner like turmoil, like, oh no, is he gonna, is everything gonna be okay?
Yeah, the peril in this movie doesn't come from the action scenes that take
emotional.
place. Yeah, it's all emotional peril, and none of it is physical peril. Now, you do feel emotional peril. In fact, there's a very nice scene in the movie where he's trapped, and he actually cries and freaks out, and you're like, I would too. That was scary.
As an adult, I would. So
Right.
It makes it even doubly as this kid who's 15.
He's like, someone help me.
Right?
And there's no one to help him because he's the guy that helps people, right?
And it was a great moment. The emotional parts were nice where you got to see it. I also really liked one of the scenes that I really liked the most was when Peter is in the car with the bad guy.
Oh,
and they
man.
had a talk. And it was like, Michael Keaton is so good.
Yes.
Like, you forget how good of an actual
And he did a good job of being someone who's freaking out and trying not to look like he's freaking out, but totally freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, that came across beautifully.
It really was. The kid did a great job. Michael Keaton did a good job. Like, it was one of those more emotionally powerful moments in the movie where the bad guy is kind of establishing what he's willing to do. Kind of even going, I would say, against his own, what he used to have as a moral code.
You know what? I'm not entirely convinced he would have followed through on that threat.
But you don't know, but you can kind of see...
But Michael Keaton does a good job of making you think he might.
But you can also see that he gets so caught up into what he's built himself that like there's no way for him to get out of it either. Like this is some thing that he's gone down and he just has to keep going down it. Like he's too far into it now just to walk away and to go back to any kind of thing. So, but that's kind of a nice development that you get to see for him as well, where you can sympathize and then he gets a little bit more crazier and you're like, ooh, you're kind of...
I so much loved his backstory.
Yeah.
It got me on board with his character right away. I knew where he was coming from. I knew why he was angry. I knew why he had turned away from a legitimate business. I completely was on board with it. He wasn't like a maniacal, cackling madman. He was very... I hate to say reasonable, but he was as reasonable as a villain has ever been in a movie like this.
Well, and the thing about it, too, is that's really interesting as a villain. He's like a different kind of villain than what you've gotten to see in these type of movies that Marvel has done with any of the heroes, because he doesn't really have like this weird evil plan to take over the world, to rule everything and to subjugate people and to have all this power and authority and all this stuff. And like he just
wants to sell weapons for money to support his family
and the people that
and to work with him,
that work with him, right? Because he is a business person,
right?
And the business that he was in, the government pushed him out of. And he has these people that are depending on him. And it's not just his family, but it's people that he's worked with, that employees that he feels responsible for and stuff. And so he's trying to maneuver in how the world's changed. And so he has to kind of change with it. Mm-hmm. And he's not really trying to take over the city.
No.
He's not trying to get political power.
No.
He's not trying to do any of that, which you get to see as really what a standard villain is in a superhero movie.
He's the blue-collar working man villain.
And that is so nice and interesting to see that he doesn't have that, like, I want to take over the world and you will bow down to me and I'm going to be the king of everything. Like, you don't have that. It's just like this guy is like, We're just trying to make a living.
It reminded me a little bit of the early seasons of Breaking Bad,
Oh,
when
yeah.
Walter White hadn't grown to love power too much, and he was really just trying to secure funds for his medical treatments and for his family to do all right after he was gone. That's this guy. This guy is Walter White pre-megalomania.
No, and so it was a really cool type of villain, I think, to introduce to, because it gave you a lot of emotional problems and conflict with not just with Peter, but with him and everyone else and stuff. And so I really liked that. I enjoyed that part of it, and I thought Keaton did an awesome, superb job with it. And hats off to him.
And hats off to the writers for keeping the character consistent of the villain through the whole film, right up till the end, when he has the opportunity to do something to Peter Parker to carry through a little bit on that threat that he made earlier, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. That's not why I did this.
Well, and I think, too, like, we keep forgetting this, but, like, he knows he's just a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a kid. He's the same age as his own kid.
Right.
That type of person is really hard to kill a kid.
Right, yeah.
Who's just kind of starting out, who doesn't know who he is, who's just a kid, and that's hard to do. Like, it's such a hard...
Different writers in a different film would have had the guy turn stupid evil and start killing people and but they didn't do it, and I really appreciated that.
Because it felt a lot more real of a character.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like just a comic book villain that you're getting.
I was surprised at the approach they took with some of the other characters, like MJ. Not what I had pictured.
Really?
Yeah, MJ in the comics is kind of a glamorous figure who does not look like the character they picked for MJ in the movie. It'll be interesting to see a different take on the character, because we have seen the glamorous MJ before, and so now they're doing something different. So I'm surprised by it, but I'm not upset about it. Changes.
I mean, that was my thing, too, is I was like, why is he going after that girl? Like, if she doesn't really give two shits about him. Like, sorry for swearing, people, but Liz, the, I guess, love interest...
Well, she seemed to like him better than MJ did.
I wouldn't say that's true. Like, she knew everything about Peter.
Yeah, but
So
she
could
didn't
tell
give
that-
off any vibes to Peter that would
Well,
make him think that she was interested.
Peter totally didn't act like he was interested in her from day one. So why would she, like, act like a puppy dog over him? Like, she has some pride. Good for you, girl.
Well,
Good for you.
there was no reason for either of them to think about a relationship with the other.
I'm just telling you that it was a little like, here's the person who obviously knows you and cares about you and is more of a friend to you than a lady over there who's like, oh, Spider-Man's so awesome, and doesn't give anything about Peter. Like, that's weird.
She invited Peter to the party, and she didn't care whether Spider-Man was there or not.
I wouldn't say that's true. The only reason why she asked him to come is when it came out that he knew Spider-Man.
See, the only reason they had a conversation is because she said that about Spider-Man, and he decided to talk to her.
She was having that party
And the
well
friend-
ahead of time, and she never had any plans to invite him to it.
I bet the reason he didn't get invited is because they didn't have a conversation, because he was too afraid to talk to her. Once they were talking, she did not make his presence conditional on Spider-Man, and I appreciated
We'll
that.
agree to disagree.
Okay. So, really, the big flaw of the film is the lack of physical consequence for actions.
I mean, my biggest flaw is I'm, like, not interested in watching a 15-year-old be a hero. But if it was just a little bit older, I could get on board with it easier and better.
I sympathize.
I still had a lot of problems that people have no... Like, even Tony Stark should, like...
It was weird that he invited him to join the Avengers. I'm like, the kid is still 15.
It was just weird that he was like, here's all my tech, I'm going to give it to you. And then be like, oh, but don't really go and do much with it. And
Well,
just,
I do understand training him slowly to get him ready
like,
for...
he wasn't really training him at all. It just didn't make... It just... I had a lot of issues. Like, it didn't make any sense. I will say the one thing that I was impressed with is that you didn't get his backstory like you do with every other
thank
one.
God. They
It felt
touch on
like-
it in a sentence. Like, the guy's like, oh, you were bitten by a spider? And that's all that you gotta hear.
But it was also nice that, yeah, you didn't get to see, like...
You didn't have to know about Uncle Ben. They mention it. Oh, she's been through a lot. Boom. We already know the story.
that's
We
what I
don't
was
need to
gonna
hear
say,
it again.
like, it was nice that it was like watching a Batman film where you don't have to watch his parents die.
Oh my God.
So it was
Martha!
it was so nice that you don't have to see Ben die. You don't actually see him bit by the spider. You don't see him go through all of that. I have to say that out of all of the Spider-Man ones, it was nice that we didn't have to go through all of that. We all know the story
Yes.
of how he gets it. We don't need to see it over again. So I was so glad you didn't see any of it. Not in a flashback, not in any kind of way. It was so nice that it just started off where he already was Spider-Man. He already had the powers. That was really nice. I liked that. I thought they did a good job there.
I like that too. For a first Spider-Man film,
More good than bad.
yeah,
I
and
will
I'm
definitely
okay.
say more pros than cons. I think that this is a good way to kind of reboot it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the actor did a really good job with it.
Great actor. I love him in the role.
I thought he did good. Hope we get to see him age a little bit, but
Yes.
we'll see. I think he's still going to be in high school.
Well, the
unfortunately,
thing
in
is, in real life, he'll be a couple of years older by the time we see him in the next Spider-Man film. Because
Yeah.
he's going to be in the Avengers, and then there's going to be another Spider-Man film after that. So he'll be a couple years older. I'm hoping they have him graduate in that film. You know, he's 18, he's graduating high school, and now we can have adult Spider-Man.
Just have him in college. I don't even need to see him graduate high school. Like,
I guarantee you
flash it back. I'll be
we're
happy.
getting one more high school one, but at least have it be graduation.
Okay, we'll see. But it's nice to see that they're going to do well with it, I think. This is going to be a better franchise for it. It'll be interesting to see who the villains are now going to be.
Well, they've
Introduced-
proven they can take they can take a crappy villain like the Vulture, who is just a terrible villain in the comic books.
Oh, is he?
He's not worth anything. But they can take him and make him pretty cool in a movie. So if they can elevate him, they can elevate anybody.
I do hope that they stick with more villains like this, especially ones that maybe aren't as well known as others, and certainly ones that I'm hoping haven't been done before in the previous films. I really don't want to see more Doc Ock. I don't want to see more of the, it's been done, even if it was done poorly. I really want to see them try and do a different take and kind of continue with what they're doing.
I do hear rumors about
Yeah.
some kind of Venom Carnage thing coming, but I don't know how that's going to fit in with the rest of the Spider-Man stuff.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, that about wraps it up for us. This will be Cubanwriter signing out, and Darkling Faye.
Goodbye, darling.
We'll catch you next time.
But you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love